technical side, Paul, what's a good session look like? If we're talking about coaching now, what does a good session technically look like?
It depends what you're going after. I think if you looked at the simplicity of the game, and I've always done it, and I always think that if I'm in trouble, when I used to coach at schools and I did disability, women's, loads of different ages, Premier League players and under 8s, grassroots, So I've got quite a broad thing. Every time I'm struggling, if I put a game on, I'll get out of trouble. Always works. Never fails, right? I'll have a game. Right. So for me, there's some key elements. It's got to, and I think it was Brian McClare from Manchester United stood up and said, look, if it looks like football, it probably is. And you're more motivated. So good sessions are about, does it look like football? If it is so remote, because you've got loads of cones, all go around in circles, loads of instructions, some kids going, oh, this is boring. Well, some kids will do that, whatever you're doing, but so on and so forth. Then I'm thinking, it's not a starter. Goals, if you look at the integral thing of the game, it's got 2 goals, halfway line, and people go up and down the pitch. So those integral realities, have got to be present for me. And they've got to get puffed out. Kids have got to get knackered. I don't think, people have, work in the physical corner, work there and all that. So no, just get them puffed out. Do you know what I mean? Because it's hard work. Yeah. So my thing is, how real is it to the game? And if the kids came off the pitch, could most of them say, do you know what?
I feel puffed out.
I like that. I feel I'm a bit knackered, and I was able to do what I'm good at, not things I ain't very good at. Do you know what I mean? So, and you've got to have attackers and defenders. So these unopposed practices were fine, but just make sure you know why you're doing them. Because
are they linking into the game?
The game isn't unopposed. The game is, that's where the tactics come in. And you can't develop individual tactics about you're coming close to me. If I go here, what are you going to do? If I run here, if he comes with me, that's a different. If he stays where he is, all the thing about time and space, if he's not there. So it's just logical that if you want individual tactics about the game, then you need to have defenders in it, because you've got to have a reaction to what you do. If I stand still, what's he going to do? If I touch the ball out of my feet, he's quicker than me. Unlikely, but he's quicker than me. He's quicker than me, right? And I want to get past him. Well, maybe I'll walk past him. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. But I have to work this out. I have to have options. And they're the tactics I'm talking about. Not 4-3-3. You can do that later. So it's more about, for me, positioning rather than position.
Yeah. And is that your thinking? There's a couple of things that, in terms of just that piece of conversation that's standing out for me. One, your varied experience. So you talked about, I did under 8s, grassroots, and I've worked with professionals who are now in the Premier League. That has definitely stood out for me. And also what stood out for me is the position thing. And one, in regards to your varied experience, you talked also about you did district team many, many years ago. How did that help you as a coach, or as a coach educator, or a developer, or understanding kids?
I'll give you a few examples, and you say, like, I took the first team, bomb squad at Palace. Yeah, Popovic, Ben Watson, I think Routledge was in it.
Yeah,
top players.
Yeah.
Popovic walked off. He said, and I realised I didn't hit the mark.
Yeah.
I think Ben said to me, like, no, I really like. Oh, and Rigolati was in it, a Finnish lad.
Yeah,
he really liked it, but Popovic hated it.
Yeah.
He was a defender.
Yeah.
And Rigolati loved all these touches, and I was doing this whizzy-bangy thing, and Popovic went, it's not for me, and he went off. Right. And so you learn. I went, oh, okay. No, he might have been. He probably had enough. He did the first 20 minutes and then thought, right, physically, I'm not doing any more.
Yeah, get
And
beat.
he wasn't
1v1.
he wasn't being rude or anything. He was just left the building, right? I did it same with. So I had to then go reflect and go, crumbs. This was carnage. What am I going to do about it? You got to fail. You got to fail and pick up the pieces. I did it with the amputee squad. I took the English England amputee squad to the World Championships.
Wow.
And the first, that's a baptism of fire, by the way. The first coaching session I did was one I would do with under 16 academy kids, bombed, because they got different needs.
Yeah.
And it was horrendous. And I had to apologise. I said, lads, I was nowhere near the mark for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I changed. But if I hadn't had all the years of working with mixed ability kids at grassroots, working at Crystal Palace, if I hadn't had that in my locker, I wouldn't have been able to change. Now, you might say, well, you wouldn't have been in that position in the first place to take the national, that disability. But I had to change. I had to change at Palace. I've had to do it when I took a grassroots team. I did it at St George's Park. Grassroots team in front of hundreds of coaches, or about 100 coaches, and I weren't very good because I got it wrong. And I had to go and say, blimey. And my point is, the more varied your experience is, the more you're able to
Tap into it.
Tap into experiences which will. It's not a problem getting it wrong, so long as you reflect on it and get it better the next time. So those examples.
Yeah, I'm listening to those examples and I'm going,
do
coaches do that? And are coaches able to go? I mean, I do believe there are coaches in the environment that go, do you know what, I got that wrong today. I need to be better for myself and for the group.
No, and that coaches are much better at that now.
Yeah,
but there's still this bravado about not admitting to the players, saying, lads, I got it, or whoever you're dealing with, I got it horrendously wrong, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't meet your needs.
Yeah.
And that is, for me, where you build up loads of different experiences, taking different age groups, maybe taking different domains, like women and girls, disabilities, grassroots, that's an unusual mix nowadays, because you either go one or t'other.
And that also, what's ringing in my head as well, that reflection process for coaches where they go, do you know what, it wasn't quite right for me. Sometimes I hear coaches going, they weren't good enough today. They weren't good enough. And it almost leans into that kind of biasness that I always believe is amongst coaches, where they go, the way that I see the game and the way that I believe it's supposed to be played, regardless of what I put on, if they don't get it right, then they're not good enough. I mean, is that something that's still within, or is it out? Or
I don't think you should ever, because if you should ever blame the players, unless you're paying them £300,000 a week. Yeah. No one should blame a kid, and I include 18-year-olds in there, if a session didn't work, because what are your expectations? Why? Why should it? It's just football. It should always work. And it never does, because you've got something. But you should never blame the kids. You should always look at yourself. And if you can't do it, then get someone else to look at you. And one of the things I think our coaches are much better at is drawing in opinions from other people and saying, listen, could you have a look? What was that like? Who's your critical friend? And I think coaches are much better at that now. Still not good enough to say, lads, I apologise, that was nonsense, and I'll make sure I'm better next. So I had to do that with the amputee squad. I had to sit them down and say, I've got it wrong, but I will get it right for you next time. I promise you, because I owed it to them.
And the biases, that kind of unconscious bias that happens amongst, or not amongst coaches, but in environments. Are we better at that, or are we not? I think
if you're talking about, are you relating to diversity or just general unconscious biases
Diversity,
about,
abilities, potential versus performance.
It's interesting, unconscious bias at this particular time, particularly the FA, is related to diversity.
Yeah, the new strategies come out. Yeah,
but the unconscious bias I think you're referring to is like, we see big kids, say big centre half, and go, yeah, he can do that. We don't even enter our heads that he could be really clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't attribute to that.
He's fast, he's quick.
He's fast, he's quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's take all the decisions away from him. I get the idea, so let's use his strengths.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you don't understand that actually he's clever, really clever, but for us he could do this job. Yeah, so on and so forth. I think there is unconscious biases all over the place. And I think that starts with recruitment, when you get kids in the building in the first place. And if you refer it, if you take it to the diversity and stuff like that, how many black number 10s are there?
Yeah, we did have that conversation, didn't we? Why is that?
Why is that? Why is this? Is it? Why?
Yeah.
And I know someone who might be listening to this will ring you up and go, "I know one." Right. But you get my point. It's disproportionate. And proportionate to wide players and fast wide players.
Yeah.
So that still, I think that starts.
Through the recruitment.
It might start at school. School teachers who don't know any better say, "Oh, he's quick. He better go." Or kids in the playground saying, "Oh, yeah," because they want to be, if you're fast, you want to show that off, won't you? But it's the adult responsibility to tap into the other strengths they've got.
Or develop them.
Yeah. Find them.
No, definitely. I mean, it still happens. Listen, no bones about it. In regards to the biases and believing that certain attributes are affiliated to certain areas and not understanding the child first. Yes, there's environments that do it well in regards to recruitment. It gets to find out about a person, their traits, and it almost, I think it taps into sort of the values and beliefs of both the club and the coach as well, because sometimes that can conflict, where a coach has their own values and beliefs about a certain way and certain things in terms of formations, player positions, way of playing and what that looks like, and you can get a contrast of different things in one environment, where I always believe if the philosophy or culture of the club is strong, then it supersedes all that stuff in regards to the biases of individuals. But yes, something that is very interesting to me.
I think it links into people going to play 11v11 quite early on.
Yeah.
If you've got kids playing, and I describe it as developing a court mentality. If you're playing, say, futsal, you pretty much roam all over the place, So if you're fast, you have to be technical. Because the game demands it. Yeah. So if we play more 2v2s, 3v3s, 4v4s, maybe those biases will just start to soften a bit, because these kids would be showing that you'd be on the ball more. There'd be more sort of you'll develop more of a court mentality. The moment you go 11v11, it falls right into that positional trap. Yeah, and kids now, and I put a tweet out once a week. Cause I can't think of what to say otherwise, but put out once about numbers, shirt numbers.
Yeah, I saw that.
And people, and I, if you want midfield players to be flexible and move all over the place, then don't give them a number 4 shirt, because they'll live up to that number.
100%, and you see it all the time.
So, and I think that's little tricks like that would be really important. But if we develop a court mentality, it takes out the biases a little bit, because you've all got to be technical, right? And I know you say, well, hang on, what about the kid who's going to be 6'2" and he's not technical and he can still make a living out of the game? Yeah, fine, right? But you can still play 5-a-side. And I think what happens is when we go to 11-a-side, and particularly with older kids, we stopped seeing the value of 4v4s, 5v5s, 6v6s, futsal for 18-year-olds. It's brilliant for their. You see what I mean?
Short touches, loads of movement.
So it's linked into the games they play,
And you
training.
see, it's probably so ingrained now. You hear it for the young people because when you say to them what position you play, especially amongst the central area of the pitch, they go, "I'm a defensive, I'm a DM, or I'm an AM, I'm a 10, or I'm a 6, I'm a 4." It's interesting how it's so ingrained now. They believe that's the things that they want to hear.
I get a bit annoyed with it now. If a kid says I'm a CDM, I go, what's that? I know what it is. I said, what is it? And he went, central defensive midfielder. I went, what's one of them?
Yeah,
No,
what do they do?
You know,
What do they?
Yeah, but I think that I go back to my point about teaching the kids positioning rather than positions too early, and in the court mentality. And that's, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Latin countries, they play with a court mentality. They keep the ball, lots of movement.
Loads of small courts on the pitch.
Yeah, basketball, futsal, that sort of stuff. You know, it's quite, and there's this court mentality. A lot of little small pockets. Yeah.
And it's interesting in regards to the national teams, the young boys, not all of them, but the young boys that are coming through probably start from a court mentality.
Yeah. And another thing, if you're running a grassroots club or anyone, and you've got, what could be better than, it's obvious that if you've got 16 players and you play 2 games, rather than 1, then each kid on each side will get more touches of the ball. So he's going to have more fun.
Cool.
You just get the blend. I just think that people
complicated again. It becomes complicated. Yeah, back to the start.
I'd like to play football, please. And I'd like to touch the ball as often as possible. How are we going to do that? One ball between 22 and you're 11 might be a problem.
Yeah. You're going to get 3 touches.
You get 3
just
if
know.
you're lucky.
I mean, you touched on it a little bit in regards to the diversity thing, and it probably, and we talked about the kind of strategy that's come out from the FA, the new strategy amongst trying to develop more diverse culture within the game. Is it too far gone now, or
No.
is there still lots of work to be done?
Loads of work
Will that help? Will that even help?
Yeah, well, Paul Elliott's and his team, and
Yeah.
it's just come out in the press, isn't
Yeah,
it? That 40 clubs have signed up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's half. So there is work to be done.
Yeah, 72 clubs, aren't there?
There's 92 Football League clubs.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
92.
that's less than half.
Yeah.
So, in answer to your question, of course, there's loads of work to be done.
Yeah.
The key is that we shouldn't wait for Black History Month to put this top of the agenda.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Totally understand.
And it should be in people's psyche all the time. About unconscious bias, diversity. Why haven't we got? Take BAME, fine, but let's take Black and Asian coaches. Why aren't there more hirers and firers? In other words, there's not many coaches who
Which
will
I
listen
believe
to this who've been hired or fired by a Black or Asian person. Now they're the ones get them into the decision making places. Otherwise, it's
the boardrooms, the academy managers,
how many owners, so on.
Owners, yeah.
Knock-on effects, so on and so forth. So there's stacks of work to be done. But the government realise there's stacks of work to be done in all industries. Yeah. If you took pockets, and there's loads of pockets of excellence in the professional game, grassroots, whatever. You take what's happening at QPR and what Chris Ramsey's doing.
Yeah.
It's a magnificent example of
Diverse
He's
community.
got Manisha Taylor, who's a Asian woman, head of
Foundation phase, 100%,
and does a lot of bullying and stuff like that, and well recognised.
Mental health as well.
Mental health, well recognised. And people say, "Oh, Chris, you're brave to, employ something brave." Why am I brave? Why do you have to be brave to employ an Asian woman to be in the foundation phase? She's a coach, and a very good one. It's not brave. That's called recruitment. And I think the diversity and inclusion thing is more about it's more about such a waste of talent. If you looked at talent ID, what a waste of talent there is. That's why I want to see more black number 10s. Seriously.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense, no sense to me, that simple example is just an illustration of some bias somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, and people might argue, as I said, but it's just an example. But come on, man.
I know 40 clubs have signed up and as part of the strategy and great as a starting point. It will be interesting to me. I haven't read the document in full, so I might be wrong. But it will be interesting if they don't follow the requirements to meet the strategy. What then happens? Do we just go? Do people just go? Well, okay, you didn't do it this year. Try and do it next year. You didn't do it next year. Try and do it the year after. Does it? And then what then happens in terms of a negative effect of clubs that are not meeting the requirements to support the strategy? Do they then go? Well, actually, then I don't want to be part of it. If you're going to criticise and scrutinise me in that way, then I'm not part of it. I always wonder how is it enforced? Who governs it? Who?
Yeah, I'm not party to how they're reinforcing it, and I'm not privy to the information yet, and I'm sure we all will be. But I'm a bit loath to say you cannot have working towards.
I love that term.
Do you know what I mean? What's that mean? Oh, it means I'll do it later. I'm working towards. No, you're not. You're either doing it or you ain't.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's what you're getting at. Is, you know, let's have some distinct thing. If you sign up for this thing,
it's
then
done.
You're signing up.
It's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not signing up to work towards and we'll have a go and we'll try this, and if it don't work for us, we'll do this, this, and this. So I'm sure the team and everyone's hearts are in the right place, and there's a absolutely dedicated team that want to make this happen.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's just like the COVID thing, you know.
Yeah.
Oh, I might wear a mask or I might not. Well, no, you're doing it or you're not.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just paying lip service to it.
Yeah, which
Also,
is happening.
I have to say the diversity thing, and I'm on a working group, and we discuss it every Friday, and it's really good. But is diversity and inclusion included in the audit process for clubs? Yeah.
EBBB.
EBBB. How much is it included in that? And in fairness, they're tucking into that big time.
Good.
So look, that would be fantastic, because the lads that run the audit thing really keen to put that in.
Don't get me wrong. It's one of these things where we go. I mean, I'm a black man, probably middle to late ages now in regards to development or being in an environment, but definitely you look around. Especially, I'm a London boy. And you look at the academies and you go, wow. In regards to the young people in the academies, you're probably talking about that BAME is probably, in most academies, 60%, if not more. And you go and you watch some teams, but then in regards to the representation of the adults in the environment, you go, it's strange, because the role models for them is difficult in some respect. And I'm not saying you can't get role models in every aspect, but I'm saying the direct role models for them is a little bit difficult. And I just wonder, but also in the same breath, you do get a lot of coaches that say, black and BAME coaches that probably they just want to be recognised for being, like what you said, good coaches. Exactly. A coach first, or a professional, or a good part of the medical team, or a good part of any team. So it is one of those strange situations where, where's the balance? Where do you get the balance right? And it's probably been difficult, and why it hasn't been right for a while now. But
I think the representation thing is really important, because if you're in Cornwall, you know, the rules are slightly different.
100%.
You know, if you're in, so, you know, I get that. But it has to be representative, and that's where the target. You know, are you representative of the population of players and so on and so forth? Is that word representative, or are you not? I think that's a big thing.